I never thought admitting fear would make me look weak. I always believed honesty built bridges, not walls. But that night, the moment I said the words, "I'm scared for us," my wife laughed, a short, bitter sound that cut deeper than any argument we'd ever had. Her name's Claire. We've been married 12 years, together for 15. We met in college, bonded over bad coffee and long walks through campus. Back then, every silence between us felt comfortable. Lately, silence feels like an alarm I can't shut off. For months, I'd been trying to fix what I couldn't quite name. She came home later, smiled less, and talked only in half sentences. Whenever I reached out, she withdrew further, as if my concern was a nuisance. That night, when I said I feared for our marriage, I meant it. I wasn't accusing her. I was begging her to meet me halfway. She rolled her eyes, set her phone down, and said, "You're just afraid of being alone, Lucas. Don't make this about love." I stood there, stunned. I wanted to argue, to explain, that fear doesn't mean weakness, that it sometimes means you still care. But she'd already turned away, scrolling through her phone again, the blue light reflecting off her face like a barrier. I slept on the couch. Not because she told me to, but because I couldn't bear lying next to someone who'd found my vulnerability amusing. The clock ticked loud in the dark, and somewhere between midnight and morning I realized I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being unseen. When dawn came, the house was silent except for the hum of the fridge. Claire's car was gone. Her side of the closet looked emptier than usual. No note, no message, just an opened drawer and the faint scent of her perfume fading from the air. I texted her once, "Where are you?" No reply. The hours crawled. I tried calling her sister. No answer. Tried her best friend. She said Claire had mentioned needing space. Space from what, though? From me? From marriage? From the person who still believed we could fix this? By evening, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Vacations, anniversaries, random moments when she'd laugh so hard she'd forget to cover her mouth. That woman felt like a memory belonging to someone else. When she finally came home that night, she looked resolved. No guilt, no tears, just a quiet certainty that chilled the room. "I stayed with Emily," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. "Without telling me?" I asked. She shrugged. "You were sleeping." I didn't want to argue. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but every one of them felt useless. So instead I said, "Claire, I meant what I said last night. I'm worried about us." She exhaled sharply, almost impatiently. "Lucas, I'm tired of your dramatics. We're fine. You're the only one making this heavy." Something in me cracked then. Not anger, just clarity. "You call it dramatics," I said. "I call it trying." She turned away, muttering something about needing a shower. I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the cold cup of coffee between my hands. I thought about the years we'd spent building a life that now felt like a staged play, props intact, meaning gone. Later, as I listened to the water running upstairs, I realized how routine our disconnection had become. Even her silence had a schedule. When she came down again, wrapped in a towel, she looked at me like I was furniture. "Are you still sitting there?" she asked. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Still here." "Lucas, maybe you should talk to someone. A therapist or something. You overthink everything." I almost laughed. The irony of being told to seek help by the person I was trying to save us from wasn't lost on me. Before going to bed, she said, "I'm exhausted. Let's not do this again tomorrow." But sleep never came easy that night. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I heard her phone buzz on the nightstand. A message lit up the screen, just long enough for me to see the name. Evan. I didn't read the text. I didn't need to. The fear I'd confessed hours before had just found its shape. By morning, something inside me had shifted. By morning, the house felt smaller, quieter, like the walls themselves were waiting for me to admit what I already knew. I stood in the kitchen, watching sunlight crawl across the counter where her coffee mug usually sat. today there was only one. Claire came downstairs around 8, dressed neatly, hair still damp from the shower. She looked surprised to see me awake. "You're up early," she said, her tone casual, like we hadn't spent the night pretending everything was fine. "I didn't sleep much," I replied. "Neither did you, I guess." She hesitated, her eyes flicking to her phone on the counter, then back to me. "Lucas, please, not today. I have a meeting." I wanted to let her walk out to keep the illusion alive a little longer. But the truth was sitting too heavily in my chest. "Who's Evan?" I asked quietly. Her expression didn't change right away. Just a small flicker, enough to confirm everything I feared. Then she sighed. "He's a friend. Don't make this ugly." I nodded slowly. "A friend you text at 3 in the morning?" "Lucas," she said, her voice tightening. "You're making something out of nothing. You've always been paranoid." It was the tone she used when she wanted to end a conversation without ending the argument. I'd heard it before, too many times. But this time I didn't back down. "I'm not paranoid," I said. "I'm just done pretending this is normal." She rolled her eyes and started to walk past me, but I stepped aside, blocking the doorway. "You can lie to yourself, Claire, but please don't lie to me. I deserve better than that." For a second she looked at me, really looked. I saw a flicker of the woman I'd fallen in love with years ago, someone who once cared enough to fight, to cry, to explain. But that version of her was gone before I could say another word. "Maybe you do," she said flatly. "Maybe we both do." And with that, she grabbed her bag and walked out the door. The sound of it closing was softer than I expected. Final, but not cruel. Just inevitable. I sat down on the couch and stared at the quiet space she left behind. Every object around me, the framed photos, the half-burned candle, the folded blanket, felt like artifacts from a life that had already ended. Hours passed before I moved. Not because I was waiting for her to come back, but because I didn't know what to do without trying. For so long, I'd made saving our marriage my full-time job. Now the silence felt like unemployment. That afternoon, I went for a drive, nowhere in particular, just far enough to see something unfamiliar. I stopped by a small diner off the highway, the kind of place where no one knows your name and no one asks why you're alone. An older man sat beside me at the counter, sipping black coffee. After a few minutes, he nodded toward my untouched plate and said, "Food's not gonna fix whatever's breaking you, son." I laughed quietly. "You're probably right." He shrugged. "Sometimes things don't break. They just stop fitting." For some reason, that line stuck with me. When I got home that evening, the house was darker. Claire hadn't returned. Her closet was emptier. Her toothbrush was gone. There was a note on the table, short, polite, emotionless. "Lucas, I think we both know this isn't working. I'll stay with Emily for now. Please don't call." Claire. No apology. No closure. Just confirmation that the silence had won. I stood there, reading it over and over until the words blurred. Then I placed it back down and for the first time in months, felt something like relief. Not because she was gone, but because the truth finally had no place left to hide. That night I didn't sleep on the couch. I lay in our bed alone, and for the first time it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace trying to find its way back. I thought about her words. "You're just afraid of being alone." Maybe once she was right. Maybe I was afraid. But fear fades when it meets reality. What scared me wasn't solitude. It was giving everything to someone who no longer looked back. Morning light spilled across the room again, warm and unbothered. The same way it had every day before her and the same way it would every day after. I got up, made coffee for one, and whispered to the empty room. "You were right, Claire. I was afraid of being alone. But I'm not anymore." And for the first time in a long time, I actually meant it.